All right, so if you're learning Spanish, you have definitely hit this wall: grammatical gender. It can be one of the most confusing parts of the language, but don't worry. Today, we're going to break it all down and make it make sense.
I mean, this is the question, right? The one that trips everybody up. In English, a book is an it. A table is an it. So why in the world is el libro masculine and la mesa feminine? It feels like there's no rhyme or reason to it.
And you know what? You're not crazy for thinking that. Even one of the Spanish teachers from the source material we're using for this explainer straight up says that for objects, it's totally random. So yeah, if you've been confused, you're in very good company. But the good news is, it's not all random. There are patterns, and we're going to find them.
So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the puzzle itself. Then we'll dive into the single most important rule you need to know, the O/A rule. After that, we'll tackle those pesky rule breakers, see how gender works with people and animals, where it gets a lot easier, and then, finally, we'll see why this all matters when it comes to making your adjectives agree. Okay, first up, let's frame this whole thing. The big idea is that every single noun in Spanish, and I mean every single one, has a gender. It's either masculine or feminine, and knowing which is absolutely key to building sentences correctly. What we're talking about here is called grammatical gender. The best way to think about it is just as a category, like a label. For an object like a chair or a car, it has absolutely nothing to do with being male or female. It's just a grammatical feature that tells you whether to use words like el or la and how to end your adjectives.
All right, now for what is by far your most powerful tool in this whole process. Seriously, if you only take one thing away from this explainer, let it be this. This one rule is going to be right most of the time, and it's your foundation. And the beautiful thing is its simplicity. Take a look. Generally speaking, if a noun ends in O, it's masculine. El libro, el niño. If it ends in A, it's feminine. La casa, la niña. That's it. It's a wonderfully simple and reliable starting point. And this is so important to remember. We're about to get into exceptions, and that can feel overwhelming, but the vast majority of Spanish nouns follow this simple O for masculine, A for feminine pattern. So when you're in doubt, this rule is your absolute best bet. Okay, time to talk about the rule breakers. You know, every language has its quirks, and Spanish is no exception. But the good news is, the exceptions that you'll actually run into on a daily basis are a pretty small and manageable group, so don't stress. And here are the most common culprits. You've got words like el mapa and el problema. They end in A, but surprise, they're masculine. And on the flip side, you have words like la foto or la moto, which are actually just short for la fotografía and la motocicleta. So that makes sense. And then there's the really weird one, la mano, the hand. These are just ones you gotta memorize. Of course, not every word ends in O or A. So what about all the others? Well, for words ending in a consonant or an E, there's really no hard and fast rule. You'll see masculine ones like el árbol and feminine ones like la ciudad. Same with E. El café is masculine, but la gente is feminine. You just kind of have to learn these as you go. Okay, let's leave the tricky stuff for a second and move on to an area where gender feels way more logical and intuitive: people and animals. Here, the grammatical gender usually lines up with biological sex, which makes things a whole lot easier to remember. And with people and animals, you start to see these really clean, predictable patterns. A lot of the time, you just take the masculine form ending in O and change it to an A, so el gato becomes la gata. If it ends in a consonant like el doctor, you just add an A to make la doctora. And even words ending in E often follow this, like el jefe becoming la jefa. Hang on, what about words for professions that can be held by anyone, like an artist or a singer? Spanish has a pretty clever way of handling this, where the noun itself doesn't change one bit. So for words that end in things like ista or ante, they're often what we call invariable. The word stays the same. The only thing that tells you the gender is the article out front, el or la. So it's el artista for a male artist and la artista for a female artist. Same for el cantante and la cantante. Simple, right? And then, just to keep things interesting, there are a handful of nouns that have completely different words for the masculine and feminine forms. These are just total one-offs you have to memorize, like el hombre for man and la mujer for woman, or el toro for bull and la vaca for cow. So we've spent all this time figuring out if a noun is masculine or feminine. You might be wondering, okay, so what? Why does this even matter? Well, this is the big payoff. This is why it's so important.
Adjectives in Spanish have to match the gender of the noun they're describing.
Check this out. If you have a masculine noun like el chico, any adjective describing him also has to have a masculine ending, so you get el chico guapo. But for a feminine noun like la chica, that same adjective changes to guapa. It has to agree. Same thing with a word like trabajador. It becomes trabajadora to match la chica.
Whew. Okay, that was a lot of rules, I know. So how about we put it into practice? Let's do a couple of quick examples to see how it all works together.
All right, first one for you. The phrase is el gato gris, the gray cat. How would you change that to talk about a female gray cat? Think about both the noun and the adjective.
And the answer is la gata gris. So gato changes to gata, that's the easy part. But here's a cool little bonus lesson. The adjective gris doesn't change. That's because many adjectives that end in consonants, like s in this case, are the same for both genders.
Okay, let's try one more, going the other way this time. How would you change the phrase la jefa trabajadora, the hard-working female boss, into its masculine form?
The answer would be el jefe trabajador. Pretty logical, right? Now, if you want to get more of this kind of practice in, the source for this explainer, profedella.es, has a great suggestion right on their website. They say, completa las actividades, which means complete the activities. You can head over there to find exercises that will really help you nail these concepts down.
And there you have it. That's our full breakdown of Spanish gender. It's a system that can feel totally random at first, especially with objects, but it becomes much more logical with people and animals. The key is just practice. So I'm curious, what's the one part of this system that you find the trickiest? Is it the exceptions? The adjectives? Thinking about it is the first step to mastering it. Thanks so much for tuning in.